the role, but thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
All right, we're over in Studio Blue now with Ruth Awolola, and she is also running for Activities Officer this year. So in your manifesto, first of all, you mentioned promoting and supporting the wide variety of student activities on offer in York. How has your experience as a society's representative helped you with that?
So being on societies committees has been great for me, but also I'm the president of a small society. When I joined SlamSoc, it was only a year old. I was the fourth member. The president stepped down and I decided to take up the role. And we risked not being ratified the next year. And I was on Societies Committee and I worked with Societies Committee to get small societies ratified. Like, it's really important to me because I think despite how many people are interested in your passion, like that is your passion, and UC can support that.
Do you think then, in terms of student groups, that there's a funding imbalance that needs to be redressed, actually potentially within USU, between smaller groups and the larger groups?
I wouldn't say necessarily it's an issue of funding all the time. Sometimes it's just support. They don't know where to go to or how to fundraise, or they've got questions that bigger societies already know the answers to because they've got years of experience doing it before. My society, like, all we really spend money on is snacks. We had pineapples and raspberries yesterday. It was fantastic. And like, UC doesn't have to fund that, I don't think. But they should know that the money is there. There's stuff like the new development grant that loads of societies don't take advantage of. But it is £150 that can really help a new society starting up or a small society.
So would you say the issue is more information and making sure that it's accessible to everyone rather than funding itself?
I would say it's definitely more information and just like guidance and support.
What would you say to those who might say that obviously having a role on Societies Committee would place you inside a sort of a bubble at USU of people that are centrally involved, and maybe that puts you at a disadvantage when connecting with the wider student body?
I've loved being on Societies Committee. I've been on Societies Committee for 2 years, and interacting with them is very different to my interactions in everyday life. But I've tried to get involved in university the best way I can. I was DEP rep. It was really interesting getting to know all the other DEP reps. I got to know someone from each department, and that was a really enlightening experience for me. I got to hear about the wider issues on campus. I have loads of friends who don't get involved in UC things at all. So I'd like to say that I had my ear to the ground in a sense, that I've got quite a vast group of people to pull knowledge from.
Fantastic. So I mentioned funding earlier. You don't actually mention student media in your manifesto explicitly, but student media obviously get the largest significant block of funding from USU. What do you think student media's place is with the union, and should USU be more open to criticism from student media?
I think UC should be open to criticism. I think this is a big thing that lots of people have spoken about. Presidents have spoken about it. My fellow activities officer candidates have spoken about it. Transparency. There is an issue from UC, with UC there. Like, a lot of things go wrong and the wrong people get blamed. Like previous sabbatical officers getting in trouble for things that might not necessarily have been their fault as well. I think the media should be allowed to criticise them. The way it's handled should be sensitive, and we're criticising people here, not an institution, but it shouldn't be a no-go.
Yeah, do you think student media is effectively policed by UC? Obviously, there's been issues in the past, such as the previous York Vision editorial team getting in a particular spot of bother a couple of years ago. Do you think it's effectively policed by UC at the moment in terms of restricting content? I
don't think so at all. I know the Vision editorial team that got sanctioned. I don't think the way UC handled that was very good. I don't think they were considering the mental health of the students who were involved. I was actually on the editorial team. I was the only member of the editorial team who didn't get sanctioned because I wasn't involved in what actually happened. But at the same time, I think UC should have done more to stop that from happening in the first place, but then also more to support the students, because it's the students that matter.
What could they have done to prevent that happening in the first place?
Because from my knowledge, everything has to get sent out to UC before it gets published. I think it should have been stopped at that stage. Also, I would say I didn't have effective media training, and that's from personal experience. I was still allowed to have the position that I had. Training needs to be improved.
So training needs to be improved. Okay. On to the second point in your manifesto then. You said that you need to ensure that students get the recognition they deserve. You talk about the York Award in your manifesto. Is that the key policy that you see implementing to address that?
I was trying to address a broad range of issues with this particular point. I think the York Award is really important. I think the amount of time and work that goes into being in a student group it's crazy. I'm just watching, like, getting me in here and all the work you guys are putting in. Like, I'm so impressed. And it's the same for like societies and the different types of media as well, whether you're big or small. And I think it's important that employers know how much work you're putting in, that they are aware of this time that you've put in, like, as well as your degree. So I really want to work with students on reviewing that and helping it be as significant as it could be.
All right, I want to move on to nightlife because it's been a big topic in the debate so far. First of all, you said that you want to ensure the student voice is heard when it comes to shaping our nights in York. Obviously, Ollie Martin this year has had several events forums that he's put on. Do you think those have been a success? How would you build on those next year?
I do think the events forums have been a success. I think it's important to hear what the students have to say. One of my housemates, she was invited to the focus group on the summer ball, and she got to have an input in, like, what's not being heard. And I think it's really interesting that they're appealing to students from normally underrepresented backgrounds. So, like, we got specific emails as, like, the Working Class Network, like, would you like to be part of this forum? And I think that is important, so it is accessible to everyone.
And do you think that, obviously, York parties currently have essentially a monopoly on official student nights from USU? Would you change that at all as activities officer? Would you look to change that and find an alternative solution?
I think it's a hard question and it's a good question. I could sit here and go, yeah, I'd change that, York parties are out right now. But I don't think that could be the case. There's only so much I can do in a year and how sustainable what I can do can be. I want to work with York Party so we can improve it. There's only now 3 clubs on the student nights. I don't think that's on. It's what students are looking for when they're applying for universities. I remember looking for what were all the best club cities, and I applied to Newcastle was my first choice because it was the best nightlife 2015 and 2016, and I was like, yeah, that's where I want to be. We're not going to get on lists like that with CUDA and no, but just CUDA. Just CUDA doesn't work.
Okay, so if you're obviously working with York parties, how would you work with them to improve the current situation with event spaces closing?
I think it is about discussions as well, looking for new venues. I know it's a massive funding issue, but it's something where we need to be focusing our attention.
And you spoke in your manifesto about the potential for a new events building.
Yeah.
How would you argue for that if you're trying to convince the university or the student union to invest in that project?
I would fully support a new student union building with the ability to facilitate events. There's lots of universities that already have it, like St Andrews. I think it is about communication and lobbying and maybe starting campaigns, but getting our voices heard, because it is something the students need. It is part of university life. Even though it's not your degree, it's still important.
So obviously an events building would be a few years down the line probably, in terms of obviously building infrastructure for that would take a long time. What would you look at temporarily for the next year as activities officer in order to fix a short-term problem of lack of event space?
I think the university and UC need to know that it's something the students really want. It's a lot about communication, about getting the students together to get what the students want from a student union building, what the students want from the student union in general, and then communicating that effectively to USU and to the university.
Do you think the solution is on-campus space or off-campus?
I think we can find solutions in both. I want to be working with off-campus venues to see how we can support student activities and student groups. There's a lot that are already doing a lot, like Vinyl Cafe. You can book that space for free for poetry readings and stuff like that. But lots of student groups don't know about that. So I want to work with the community as well as working with on-campus events.
All right, fantastic. So just finally to finish off, obviously there's a lot of challenges that the role of activities officer presents. So why are you motivated to run for the next year? What is it that inspires you about the role?
I've just really loved being part of student activities whilst I've been here. It has been the highlight of my university experience, whether it's Slam Sock or Societies Committee or being in the pantomime. I've just loved doing all of that, and I want to give back, and I've seen how it works, and I think I could effectively help.
And in 20 seconds, why should people vote for you?
Why should you vote for me? Because I want to help you. My interest is your interest. I just want to see the students get what they deserve.
All right, thanks very much, Ruth. Back to you guys in Studio Red.
Now